That's how I got to work with John Mayer. He was coming to work with llmind. I was engineering. Yeah, no, John was really nice, like extremely one of the most like talented people. Just watching him play.
I mean, you've also worked with some other really dope artists. Who are some of the other people that you work with that people might, know?
Isaiah Rashad, BJ the Chicago Kid. Oh, Freddie Gibbs is. I'd love to talk about him. I was working with somebody who was like very, very fast, like extremely talented. This guy had just written stuff for Drake. I mean, he was like in very high demand at that point too. So yeah, I was like very convinced they weren't gonna call me back after that, but they did. I don't know, send the DM, send the email. You never know. And I learned very fast. I will say that. Like you get thrown into it's a super adult world too. It's like, they're partying in the sessions and there's guns and strippers and
This is They're Good at That Shit, where I talk to artists about what they're doing well. My guest today has worked with Atlantic Records and artists like John Mayer, Sian McMullen. Thank you for joining me.
What's going on? Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's talk about Atlantic. How did that relationship happen, and how'd you start working with Atlantic Records?
I had a mentor that I met in college. That the college I went to was also a commercial studio. So one of the guys who worked there while I was in school, one of my mentors named George, he was interning there and then eventually got hired on as a house engineer. And they were just looking for engineers. So I got to skip the whole intern process for Atlantic. I did intern at other studios, but they needed people really bad. So I went in and had like the quickest interview I've ever had in my life. It was like, do you know Pro Tools? Yes. Do you know how to patch gear? Yes. Do you know how to use mixing key? Yes. All right, cool. We'll give you a session tomorrow and see how you do. And I had driven from Oceanside to North Hollywood for that. It was like a 2-3 hour drive. It's quite a haul. So I was like, man, I just came up here for that. It was so quick, but it worked out. Then I had the next session a session the next day, and it was cool. And then I had a session a few days after that, and it went very bad. It was really? I was not used to the I guess top lining and writing technique that was and is very common for how people write, of like just going in and mumbling, getting melodies down, picking parts out, playlisting, all that stuff. I was not used to it. And I was working with somebody who was like very, very fast, like extremely talented. This guy had just written stuff for Drake. I mean, he was like in very high demand at that point too.
Okay.
So yeah, I was like very convinced they weren't going to call me back after that, but they did. And I was there for like basically until that was 2017. And then I was there until the pandemic hit and the studio had to close. Like everything had to close. So yeah, they ended up keeping me. So they just really threw me in the fire like quick with they tricked me with a softball first session, and then my second session was like, okay, we're gonna see what you made of. So
when you say it went bad, that second session, what do you mean?
I just couldn't keep up. I was very green. Like I mentioned, I was like super new to just the whole method, and I think what makes a really efficient engineer is like being fast and being able to anticipate kind of what they need and learning every person's workflow. And I just wasn't used to being in that environment yet. So like there were takes that I deleted that should not have been deleted. I didn't know how to playlist really. So like my session was a mess. I remember, I think I sent them like either the acapella or the instrumental instead of the actual bounce at the end of it. And they like called me immediately and were like, hey, you didn't send us the right bounce. So all that information goes back to the A&R who booked the session, who works for the label, who has hired me.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, this is all going to get back to them and they're not going to call me back. But it was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just was like just not capable of working with that like caliber of artist at that point. But that was cool because a couple years later we worked together and it was fine. He also loved me. He would come in and be like, where's the girl? He never knew my name, but he'd be like, why aren't you booking me with the girl? And I was so confused because I thought we had a really bad first session together. So like our relationship was cool, which was weird. But then I worked with him again finally a few years later and I was like, oh, this is light work. This is easy. So that was also like a cool full circle moment for me to see how far I had been able to like grow my skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes though, I feel like we get in our own head, especially about those first times, and we're like, oh my God, I'm really sucking right now. They're not gonna, and I think we do that with shows, we do that with sessions, and then, while the other person, like the audience, for example, if you're doing a show, like the audience, at least for me, like it probably wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
Like the audience is having a great time. They didn't even notice it, but meanwhile you're up there freaking out because and once things kind of start to go in that path, I feel like like you mentioned, you definitely start to get in your own head, and then it's hard to kind of climb out of that mind space a little bit.
And then it might actually affect your performance
exactly
in the future.
Exactly. It can make you like anxious or like hesitant because you're like, oh, the last time I did this, I don't know. Exactly. So I remember being on the way home like, that's it. They're never calling me back. That 3-hour drive home, I'm like, they're never calling me back. But it was cool. They called me back like 2 or 3 days later. And then, they're like, I kept going. So that was an important learning experience for me, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do believe in trial by fire also. Like, you kind of just have to have those bumps and bruises. You have to get knocked down a couple pegs. Or not even like, for ego as well. But just like you have to have those shitty sessions as an engineer specifically, because you have to learn how to handle that, because not every session is going to be like, oh my God, I love you, we're making the best music of our life. There are going to be some that are challenges, and having those experiences helps you learn how to handle those when they do come up.
Absolutely. Now, I always say that I feel like I learn just as much, if not more, from the bad shows I have versus the good ones. Because if you look at it in the right way and think about it in the right perspective, you can learn a lot from it, instead of just saying like, oh my God, I sucked, and then and like spiraling, kind of like we were talking about. If you say, okay, what can I take away from this? What can I learn from this? So my next question to you is, what did you kind of take away from that session, and that kind of allowed you to get better and allowed you to like keep going and keep working with them?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like really just, purely on the technical level of how that process was, like the top lining and writing. And still, like, I would go on to do more sessions where I learned more about that. That definitely like came over time. That was just like the first like really bad one that I had, so it sticks out to me. But I've had plenty of them, and I think they all kind of just really teach you what you were saying. You learn a lot from the bad shows or the bad experiences, but I feel like it's you learn more of what not to do. So I'm like, okay, well, don't delete anything. I learned that pretty early on, because people will tell you to delete something and be like, hey, that one I asked you to delete, can you pull it back? And you're like, so like, don't delete anything. Just like really how that technical side of it works, but also more importantly, the social aspect of like, there are things that maybe are out of your control, like Pro Tools will crash, or we've all had computer issues before. We've all had a computer, and we know that something just happens sometimes. And when that happens, it's like, if you freak out, they're gonna freak out. But if you know how to handle those types of awkward situations, whether it's your fault or not, because if it's your fault, you're probably going to freak out a little bit more internally, but you have to still keep it cool, explain, or try to handle them, because they're probably going to be like, what's going on. Some people are more understanding than others. Some people get pissed. You have to find the solution, but also manage their emotions as well. So like, all of the bad experiences helped me learn how to do that type of stuff too. But it came over time. Definitely wasn't just one session where it was like, oh, it all clicks all of a sudden. It took some years, for sure.
Oh, I think one thing you said that I think was key is focus on finding a solution. I feel like
be solution oriented.
Problems happen, and then a lot of times people are focusing on the problem itself and not the solution. Like, what's the possible solution? When I feel like every problem definitely has a solution, and so if you focus on that, okay, what is the solution? And sometimes it might take you a second to figure it out, but I think if you're focused on that versus the problem itself, then I feel like you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like a big part of engineering specifically too, is being like a problem solver, because things are going to go wrong. Nothing's ever going to go smoothly the way it's supposed to. Gear breaks, computers mess up, people don't show up, whatever it is. And there is always a solution, even if it's not a permanent solution, even if it's just putting a Band-Aid on something. But like that is part of the job as engineers, to keep the session going.
I heard someone say, and this is a popular, like it's a law of physics that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So like if you really think about it, that means every problem has a solution.
There has to be a way to figure it out. Yeah. So that's definitely important, to not get hung up on the actual obstacles that arise, and to get it, and to keep a good attitude about it too, because like if you get pissy, other people are gonna get pissy. If you're in a good mood about it, like if you were able to kind of keep the energy light and productive, that is like a big part of your job in the room, I think, as an engineer.
Yeah. And another thing you were talking about earlier is just how over time and over the years you get better. So I mean, I think just like sticking with something, and sometimes if you stick with something and do it consistently, you might not even necessarily notice the growth along the way, but it's kind of like one day you look up and you're like, man, I got pretty good at this.
Yeah, I think with music, we're lucky we have such a tangible way to hear our growth, because I mean, I'm sure if you go back and listen to something that you made however many years ago compared to something you made this week, you're like, wow, the growth is really there. But yeah, you don't see it until moments like that. Or like in my case, I've definitely like gotten some like very thoughtful and gracious compliments from very big people that like makes me feel like I'm doing my job. And that's like kind of a reminder. It's like, okay, well, I know like 2 years ago, I probably like wouldn't have even been able to get this session, versus now I'm like not only here, I'm like getting praised for my skills. So that's like a good reminder as well. But yeah, definitely just hearing your old work versus what you're working on now is a good way to like be like, oh yeah, I'm actually doing something right.
Yeah.
I think important to do sometimes also, because we do get caught up in the grind. So it is important to remind yourself like that you have put in a lot of work, even if you're still not where you want to be yet. So being able to have those reminders are also like we're fortunate in our field to be able to have that.
Yeah, reminders that you are growing and celebrating the wins. I think, as they come
even
along.
The
it may
small
not
ones.
be, it may not be, you didn't win a Grammy or whatever, but I think celebrating those small wins can definitely help give you some fuel to keep pushing.
If you're in that kind of like negative zone, or you're just like doubting yourself or whatever, you'd be like, oh man, but I did this already, or like, but listen to this song that I made compared to this song that I made last year, or whatever.
100%.
Yeah, even the small things, to help remind you like, okay, I'm kind of the shit. Like, I'm kind of good at that. Yeah, we all need that sometimes.
Absolutely. So you work with artists like John Mayer, for example. Like, how was that?
That was fun. He was an interesting guy.
Yeah.
So shout out to llmind. A lot of my big credits are, so llmind is he's a big producer who he put out a tweet maybe like 2018. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at the email, but he just put out a tweet that was like, I'm looking for a young, hungry upcoming audio engineer to do like 4 12-hour unpaid sessions in North Hollywood. I was already working at Atlantic, so I was already commuting from San Diego. And so I was also a janitor part-time, because they were not paying me very well at the time. Like when I first started, payroll, that was a different situation. But so I had to, supplement my income. So I was like, okay, well, let me see, let me just send this email and see if it works. And then he like emailed me and was like, hey Shan, would love to have you. Here's my phone number. And so through him, that was the start of what is still an ongoing working relationship. And because of being, his kind of main LA engineer, I've been able to just work with whoever he's working with. So that's how I got to work with John Mayer. He was coming to work with llmind. I was engineering. John was really nice, like extremely one of the most like talented people, just watching him play. And I'm not like I know like the name of like 2 or 3 John Mayer songs. Like
Okay.
I know who he is. Obviously,
right.
I'm like, oh, he's an amazing guitarist, but I'm not like the hugest fan. So I am now because of watching it in real life. Yeah, but I feel like with that level of genius definitely comes like a sense of like individualism and very unique personality that he had. And he was just, his sense of humor was just funny. I don't know. I remember he set up his guitar like on the chair, and it looked like it was gonna fall. So I made a comment on it. I was like, I don't know if I would put that there. And he goes, you know what? It's like the Olympics, and it's like when I wake up every day. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And he's like, because I play a game every day when I wake up. If I can wake up right on 11:59 or something like a random number, you know, a very specific number, then I win for the day. And if not, I get to try again tomorrow. And I'm like, what does this have to do with your guitar about to fall off this chair, dude? So he was a unique person, but like supremely talented. I mean, him just like freestyling guitar and singing is pretty impressive to watch for sure. Yeah, memorable. One of my most, I guess, prolific pictures. Sometimes as the engineer, you also double as the photographer because everybody wants to, but you don't get to be in the pictures. So one of the best ones where that is llmind and John Mayer's picture together. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I took that. I didn't get a picture with him, but I got to take one of him. Yeah, that was a fun time. Just the one though. We only I was a little bit bummed because I do remember everybody when I found out he was going to come later that week, because we had a week of sessions with like a lot of other dope people leading up to that. And a lot of people were like, oh, like the studio we were at, they're looking around, they're like, there's not amps in here. Like, you know, you guys are going to need amps and you're going to have to mic up amps. And I'm like, you know, only done that a few times. I don't like mic up a lot of like live, you know, stuff. A lot of it, I work with a lot of vocals primarily. So I was like, man, like I'm going to have to borrow mics because this studio doesn't have a lot of mics. And I came super prepared, and he pulls up with 2 Pelican cases and a guitar. And he goes, look at this place. The studio is pretty big. He goes, where would an amp fit in here? What do I look like bringing amps around? He had an MPC X and his guitar, and that was it. I was like, wow, okay. So I was expecting like to have to work, I don't know, just to have to do more stuff, and I didn't have. So I guess a relief, but also a little bit of a bummer because I was like, cool, I get to try new things, and then just plugging in.
One thing you talked about earlier, you talked about his comment when you mentioned the guitar in the chair, and I think it may be, I don't, obviously I'm not in his head and I don't know what exactly he meant by when he said that, but it kind of reminded me of like, maybe that is like one of his ways of celebrating the small wins and like just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like
making
just kind of
like gamifying it almost.
It's like, it's a game every day. It's it's like a way to just like, if I can get like small wins every day, even on something that maybe not even like really related to, you know, career, maybe just helps him just stay in a positive mindset, maybe like
goal oriented.
Like I remember, you know, just like watching, kind of on the flip side of that, like watching, you know, when you watch documentaries or when you hear interviews about Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, for example, like those dudes, they did not need much to like get in a competitive zone. Like they could use anything and it would just like piss them off, and then they would just go into like beast mode, killer mode, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and I find that like with people that are great, it's like they have a way of like turning the littlest things into that fuel, that to motivation, keep them going. So that's it just kind of reminded me of that when you said that. I'm like, maybe that is his, you know, version of just like just being able to like flip into a certain mindset. You know, that's
a good point. I'd actually never even considered it like that, but I think that's a really good point. It was just the context in which that comment was. I was just like, what does this have to do with what I said? But maybe it actually had everything to do with it. I'm the one that's
who knows? And you've also worked with some other really dope artists. Who are some of the other people that you work with that people might, you know?
Like a ton of really, really talented writers who, if you know, you know. I'm about to drop. I don't want to name drop too much because I have some big ones, but like, dude, so on the writer's side, Ant Clemens, Derek Milano, Sinead Harnett on the writer side and on the artist side. What's her name? Blush. She's super Ink. Ink is the turquoise cowboy, and if you know anything about her, she is like one of the coolest people to ever grace the planet, and like incredibly talented. She writes for Beyonce and I mean anyone you can think of. So those are some like more behind the scenes kind of writer people that anybody listening to this
and so
who's
some
like
of those other
in
people,
the industry would probably know, but the average listener would probably not be aware of them unless they went and looked up the credits. So.
Yeah. So one of those people you said worked for Beyonce. Some of those other writers, have they worked for people like that as well?
Yeah, Derek Milano like wrote "Hot Girl Summer."
Okay.
For which, So, and I don't want to say like he wrote the whole song.
Yeah, sure. No.
He was a writer on that song.
Sure.
Aunt Clemens, like, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to say Kanye West anymore, but I know that was kind of like his big, I mean, that was like at the time when I was working with him, that was kind of when he was like getting started and it was yay, but gone on to work with like Justin Timberlake and yeah, I mean, these are like I said, anybody who's listening to this, if they're like, work in the industry or be in kind of in the studio side of things or on the A&R side of things would be very aware of a lot of the names I just mentioned.
Sure.
And then artist-wise, like Isaiah Rashad, BJ the Chicago Kid.
Well, let's start with Isaiah. How was that working with Isaiah?
He's very calm. Yeah, extremely calm guy. That's really all because they're very reserved. Yeah, like super calm, very nice, like super polite. I looked forward to when he was coming to the studio because it would just be like, just relax. Some people will come in and like, for instance, like Agashi, like he's super fun to work with. But when we were talking about energy, like that guy would come in on 10 and it's a fun time. Don't get me wrong, but like you got to kind of prepare for it, whereas like Isaiah would come in and just be like, oh, I'm gonna roll a blunt, and then like I'll just listen to the beat and I'll just be here writing. He's just like so calm and chill. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, Gashi was fun to work with. I worked with Cranium a little bit back in Atlantic. I haven't even thought about that in a while, but we have some cool songs together. He's a Jamaican artist.
Okay.
What does it say on my Instagram bio, Dave? Who am I? I know it's John Mayer, Isaiah Rashad, BJ the Chicago Kid. Oh, Freddie Gibbs I'd love to talk about him actually because I grew up listening to him. He's like one of my favorite artists. I went to several of his shows before I was doing this professionally.
Okay.
And I was like really getting into, I was focusing on like making beats. This was like when I was still in college and I wasn't really sure if like, I don't know, I wasn't sure what route I was going to take, but I was like, I want to, really put in the work and like wake up be on a schedule every day, make like this many beats a day. I was really trying to regiment it, which I eventually found out didn't work for me, but I was making like my output was really high. And so I was like feeling myself. And I remember this was like when Snapchat was kind of like still popping, and I was friends with Diego, who's Freddie's cousin.
Okay.
I had like followed him. Like, so we weren't friends, but you could subscribe or whatever to somebody because he was like always with Freddie. So you got some cool behind the scenes stuff.
Got it.
And I was like, let me just send this to and I was like following Freddie too. So I like, and other artists as well. So I was like feeling myself one night and I like took a video of this beat that I was making. And I'm like, this shit is awesome. I'm going to send it to any like big person that I follow. Diego actually opened it. When I saw it went from pending to open, I was like, oh, no way. And then I see him typing. I'm like, oh, man, he's either going to roast me or like this could either go one of two ways. And he was like, do you make more beats? And then so through there, we were able to get in touch. This was before I was even working at Atlantic. I drove up to their studio, North Hollywood, and was able to have a meeting with Diego and their engineer, Sid, and be able to just like, I don't know, just smoke with them, play some more of their music. I saw them, met Freddie. And then that happened like one or two more times. And then eventually I went to Freddie's house and I'm like smoking blunts, hanging out with like Diego, Freddie, their homie Rich, who's another one of his engineers and producers. Like in his crib, I'm like literally rolling up weed on a unopened him and Currency vinyl. Okay. That was a crazy moment for me. I grew up listening to, like, he was like on a personal level one of my favorite artists. Wow. So being able to like be in his home, being able to record him, being able to kind of consult. I did a little bit of consulting for their home studio. I mean, that was that was a huge full circle moment for me. Wow. Yeah, that was really cool.
Let me ask you about that real quick. So, I mean, I think one one cool like lesson, I guess, from that is you shot your shot. You know,
yes.
You sent, you sent that beat. I feel like a lot of people would get in their head about that and not send the beat to the people they look up to.
Pretty sure I was a little buzzed, so I'm not gonna lie.
Whatever works.
They had a little bit of that liquid courage.
No judgment here.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that. But
the same thing with the llmind thing, though, is like he put out the tweet, and then I sent the email. I'm sure he had hundreds of emails.
Yeah.
I will say one thing he mentioned, and this is just lucky for me because I didn't pick my name, but he said he reckoned because I do have a uniquely spelled name.
Yeah.
He had recognized my name from interacting with him on socials. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just, I don't know, send the DM, send the email. You never know. And everybody has their phone attached to them all the time. So if it's like, obviously if it's Beyonce or something, she's probably got millions. She's probably actually not going to see your DM. Yeah. But the average person who's still doing it, they're going to, even if they don't open it, they're probably at least going to see it, whether you know that or not.
Yeah.
So if anything, that's, motivation to keep doing, because, them seeing it, that's one step away from them opening it, which is one step away from them responding to you.
Yeah.
So don't be annoying, but, be polite, be respectful, and bring value. But yeah, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. I think that's super important, especially living in LA. It's a big city, but it's small, especially in the entertainment industry. So everybody kind of knows each other. It's all 6 degrees of separation. Yeah. So networking and being able to put yourself out there is a huge plus. And I think a lot of people are scared of no's, but you get so many more no's before. But that one yes is the one yes that could change a lot of things for you. So just taking the no's in stride is important. You have to learn that too. And it's not easy to get rejected, but it's not the end of the world either. Some people might treat it that way, and you're just like, nah, if that's the worst thing that happens to me today, it's a pretty good day. I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. I think, learning to get comfortable with no and be okay with no, and to even embrace the no,
Yeah. Why did they say no, and how can I turn that no into a yes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Super important, especially if it's something you really want or genuinely thought you were a good fit for. And so if the no comes as a surprise to you, I think that's where it's really important to that's where the lesson will really be, is to okay, well, I really thought I was going to get this, or I really thought I was a good fit for this. So why did they not think that? And how can I actually become that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just not being afraid of the no, you know what I mean? I feel like the faster you can get to that place where you're not really afraid of it, then you're more willing to shoot the shot, and you're not.
Yeah, I think that taking ego out of it, so many things. A lot of people, I think, are afraid of the kind of the embarrassment maybe that will come with that, and how they will look, not even how it necessarily makes them feel, but about how it will make them look to the other person or the other party or whatever. And that's just a very selfish. It's selfish, but also not. I don't know. It's selfish to yourself, because you're not allowing yourself to you're not presenting yourself through your own lens now. You're you're too focused on the lens that other people are viewing you through.
Yeah.
So I think just being comfortable with the no.
Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, you've been around, a lot of people who have done a lot of dope things, who are really great at things. We talked about John Mayer, you talked about writers who have worked with Beyonce and Drake and Justin Timberlake and things like that, people at the top of their game. Is there anything that you noticed with these people, maybe any common threads or any common character traits that you kind of picked up on that maybe, can explain why they've had some of the successes they've had?
For sure, yeah. There's definitely a few that are very consistent, throughout all of the people that are I consider successful, and everyone's definition of success is different. Sure. But one of them is persistence, for sure, which I feel like we talked about a little bit already. Just continuing to go, not being afraid of the no's, we were just talking about, just believing in yourself and kind of having that faith that like you just betting on yourself and trusting that you are going to carry yourself to get to where you go. Also just like being a genuinely nice person. I've worked with some people who are like extremely talented, but they're really rude and not polite at all. And like, I'm not saying I don't need pleases and thank yous in the studio and I don't need to be really formal, but don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
And somehow, like, even as easy as that is, some people mess that up. Like the people that I consider success, they treat people with respect. When things are, you know, maybe get a little bit weird in the studio, they handle it with such grace and respect, and are just like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm never gonna work with that person again, but they're not gonna like talk crazy to them while they're there. They're gonna make sure that they feel comfortable and that we still have a productive and a good session. So yeah, persistence and just being like a good person, which those don't sound that complicated. But you know, not everybody has that.
Yeah,
so
no, totally.
I feel like I definitely try to take those pages out of their books and just try to move in a way that also like anybody, like at llmind, like a lot of people have in the industry have very high praise of him because he's a good person and he treats people well and he doesn't burn his bridges and he's been doing this for he's a little bit of an older guy. He's been doing this for a while, and like he has relationships from a long time, and that's how I want to move. You know,
Yeah.
so I've been really inspired by that, and like been very fortunate to be, around and have worked with a lot of people who set such a positive example. You know, because it is very cutthroat. It's easy to not move with integrity and to only move about the money and try to, there's a lot of scammers, and not even for money, just for clout too, just to say they were with this person or whatever. And like, that doesn't matter at all, but it seems to, and like the way it's projected to like Instagram, social media, TV, whatever, we see it all. But being able to like work with people who don't embody that at all, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that I feel like there is a stigma that a lot of the industry is the opposite of that. And so I think that was interesting that you mentioned that a lot of these people that you work with that have achieved a lot of success are very nice people and they treat people well.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there's a stereotype kind of that to get to the top, you just got to be cutthroat and step on people and blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
And there are people like that, but
Sure.
I would say in my experience, I feel like I've been around like very like genuine people and people who move with integrity and actually have like morals and values about them. So yeah, for me, I don't think the music industry is this big evil, everybody's messed up type of situation, but that's my experience.
Right.
Some people are not as fortunate, and I get that.
Sure. You've also had the opportunity to do some partnerships with brands like Safari Pedals, for example. Talk about that.
That's good. Shout out to my girl Abby at Safari Pedals, dude. They're just really cool. I don't even know. They just kind of emailed me one day and were
really?
like, "Hey, do you want to try this? Like, we'd love to give you our bundle. We'd love to get your feedback on it. Would you like to be part of like our podcast, or would you like to be interviewed for our podcast?" So we did that. That's kind of how the relationship started. It was just random. They reached out. I think they're like they're a smaller like boutique company. They're not necessarily on the level yet of like a Waves or one of those big ones like Slate. So I think they're really trying to. I respect a lot how they really build their community. And I'm like very grateful to be a part of that. So yeah, they send me stuff and I get to try it out. I give them feedback. I get to make presets for some of their newer plugins that come out. And they're just like super open. Whenever we do communicate, they're always like, "Please let us know if you need anything." They've been very kind to me, and I'm super gracious to be in a working relationship with them.
Awesome. Before earlier, you mentioned that you were starting to, when you were first starting to like work at studios and stuff like that, or starting to do that type of work, you were also working as a janitor as well. Like, how was that? Like balancing that, having this job over here, and then trying to because a lot of people, we have other jobs and we're trying to get into, what we're trying to get into. And like, so how was that kind of balancing that? And then how did you kind of like?
It was mostly because the driving, it was very challenging. I was, like not even 21 yet. So I had the youthful energy.
Yeah.
I had the drive. Like that wasn't a problem at all. In my mind, like, it's like, I got to make money, but I also got to like put in steps towards my passions. So if that's not making, like, I was getting paid, it wasn't enough, with the gas and the driving and stuff. So like that was fine, but driving 3 hours, I would give myself a 3-hour window. Hopefully it would only take 2 to go, from Oceanside, which is North County, San Diego, up to North Hollywood. I would usually get scheduled for the night sessions because I've always been a night owl naturally. So some people prefer the morning, some people prefer the night, so they knew I was a night engineer. So I would work from it would be 7 to 3 or 4. Okay. And I knew I would have to get if I didn't get on the road before 4:30, I would catch so much traffic heading back down to San Diego on the 5. It would be ridiculous. So I knew I had to get on the road by 4:30 at the very latest. And then it would just be tough if I was a janitor, I think on Mondays and Fridays, and then I was driving an hour south of where I lived. It would be tough when I would go, it would be on a Sunday or a Thursday, I'd have to go do the night session at Atlantic, then drive back, get home probably 7 in the morning, eat, sleep, and then wake up, still try to have a day, and then at 7 or 8 I would have to go and start cleaning because I had to wait till the businesses closed. And then I have to get in the car again, drive down to Springfield or whatever it is, Mission Valley, and then go clean these creepy buildings that were closed. And I cleaned a blood work lab.
Oh wow.
They had these big freezers. I thought a zombie was gonna come out of them one time. But yeah, no, just the driving, the driving was the hard part, but the mental part of it was easy. I was like, I need to live. I need to move out of my mom's place. I need to move to LA. That was I don't want to do this commuting thing forever. And these are the steps that I need to make it happen. So that part of it was actually easy, but the actually doing it was a challenge for sure. No, but it got me here. I'm very, I'm glad that I was, willing to do that. I feel like maybe especially a janitor. Is I just had a friend who that was his brother's business, so it was I didn't have to deal with an onboarding process or anything. It was just immediate start working. So I was okay, I'm not gonna. It's a janitor. Who cares? I'm not going to deal if I have to apply to places and then go through the interview process. I need a job now. So I didn't have an ego about cleaning toilets and vacuuming carpets and stuff. So I'm grateful that I had that mindset back then. For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I respect that mindset where you're I just gotta do what I gotta do and let's get it done. Also, I respect the drive and back and forth.
I was a road dog, man, and I was driving a '97 Toyota Camry that when I bought it had over 100,000 miles on it. I think it died 3 days after I moved here, and I wasn't even mad. Most people, it literally the transmission just went out on me. I was at a red light and then I pressed the gas and it didn't go. So most people would have been so upset by that, and I was just looking at it, I'm you did so good. For almost 2 years, you got me where I needed to go, and now I live here, and I'm on the way to the studio, which is only 10 minutes away from where I live now, and you're dead. It's fine. You deserve a Viking funeral. So, no, it did what I needed it to do, and then I got up here. So
absolutely. Awesome. I also did that commute back and forth for I lived in San Diego actually too.
Oh, nice.
And I worked on the radio weekends for Channel 933. So I was a on air radio DJ or whatever, and then I would work up here at TV stations during the week. So I produce TV news too. So I was doing that back and forth. But I mean it was fun. I enjoyed doing the radio thing, and then and I knew that eventually I would want to be here full time. So it's
you had to do it.
I was it just is what it is.
And you think about it in that situation, LA is a global destination for a lot of industries, but especially music. And you think about how many people just want to come here just to see the Hollywood sign or something, and will maybe never get the opportunity to come here to work, or it might not ever be realistic for them to be able to like live here to work. Where we were living, 3 hours away.
Yeah.
We can't let that stop us.
No.
It's
Absolutely
not stopping the kid from Maine coming out here. So it's like, come on, we live drivable distance. We have to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the Hollywood sign specifically. I feel like I still get motivated when I see the sign. It's just it's kind of like a beacon.
I use that as like just a general example, but I'm like, bro, it's just a sign. Like,
well, I mean, at least for me, like I see it and I'm like, you know what? It was kind of like you said, like this is a destination
it's a symbol
for people.
For like,
it's a symbol for like what the city kind of represents, and that place where you can go and chase your dreams and try to make things happen, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like I'm feeling a little less of that. I've lived here for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
I'll be 30 in a couple of months, and I just feel like it's less of a necessity to, like, COVID obviously changed a ton of things, but I would say I'm kind of moving into a more where it was like 50% in-person sessions, 50% virtual. Lately, I've been moving into more like leaned heavy on the virtual sessions. Not like by choice. That's just what's happening.
Okay.
Obviously too, financially in this country, things are getting weird. So people are not really spending a lot of money on the studio time. They're getting, a setup at home, cutting out that cost, paying for just the engineer's time for a virtual session.
Yeah.
So with like that kind of becoming more prevalent in my work, I'm like, do I really need to live here? Because I got mad love for LA. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like reconsidering. I used to feel it was 100% necessary for me to be able to be successful in this field. To like, I needed to live here, and to be able to work here. And now with the way things are going, I feel like, to me, I just don't think I don't know if it's 100% necessary anymore. I mean, what are you saying that as well?
I mean, I don't know, maybe a little different for me just because like, I think in terms of like playing shows and stuff like that, like being like, I feel like I kind of need to be here. I mean, now granted, people can hop on TikTok live and can perform
live, and
and if you can, and because some people can get stuff popping on TikTok, and then, and they can be seen, and that can happen from anywhere, So like there are avenues and there are ways to do it not being here. But, personally, I do feel like, you may have a better chance if you're, performing here because, somebody told me, we were talking about John Mayer earlier, like somebody told me they saw John Mayer one day, this was like several years ago, but they saw John Mayer at Hotel Cafe, which is a spot that I perform at all the time.
Yeah.
So it's
I've been to shows there.
Yeah.
So that's true. Like here, you never know who you're gonna run
who
into.
just might be just randomly around,
There is always that. And like the human, even like, virtual sessions are great. They're very convenient, but I would definitely prefer to be in person. And same with a show. It's like, okay, cool. You remember like when Versus first started happening, and like I remember thinking it was so cool to see Babyface on live playing. And like that was sick, but like it would have been a lot sicker if I was there in person.
Sure.
So like the human element of it, of course, and the in-person element of it will, I think, always be really important. But yeah, I don't know. I guess just for like, just my view has changed because it definitely was like for a long time, like this was living here to, to work here. So I didn't have to commute was the ultimate goal. And like lately I've just feel like, I just don't know if that's like the case anymore. Yeah.
Understood. So, you mentioned you've been here about 10 years.
Going on, yeah.
Yeah, and so that means when you would have started out doing sessions, you would have been a very young woman in an industry that's, it's a lot of dudes, like how did that kind of play out, and how was it trying to navigate that?
People definitely underestimate women in my field because it is so male dominated, and I was so new also. I mean, I feel like I feel like I was like judged wrongfully for my gender, but rightfully for my lack of experience, for sure. So whether they knew which one it was coming from, I don't know.
Right.
But it's a bad feeling when someone comes in and you're the only one in the room at the desk with Pro Tools up, and they're like, "So where's my engineer?" And then I'm like, "I'm your engineer," and then they look and they're like, for real? Like, why would they book me with you? And some people were very vocal about it. Some people tried and failed to hide it, and that's almost worse because it's like, okay, now you just like, I know how you feel, but you don't even want to tell me. At least the other guys were like, in my face about it.
Yeah.
But like eventually I got to a point where I was just like, I was very confident in myself, and I'm like, whatever, dude, get in the booth. 5 minutes later, you gonna be like, wow, you're the best engineer I've ever worked with, you know. And not saying that is the truth. I'm just saying that's how it goes, It got to a point where I was just like, whatever, dude, just shut up and I'll just show you, But it definitely like could, especially like being super young too. I mean, I wasn't even old enough to drink when I started doing sessions up here, and it just all the things that come with like even just being that age and being in your late teens, early 20s, and you're figuring out what it means to be kind of an adult, I guess. So like all that's going on, and then I'm working in a field where I'm not only an outlier because of my gender, but also because of my age. So I'm working with mostly men who are like 10 years older than me. So that was also very, different too, because even just some of like even just on like a bonding level, like they'd be, oh, we're going to go to the bar afterwards, like, or to this venue or something. Like I couldn't get into certain things because I literally wasn't 21.
Yeah.
So you missed out on certain things that like maybe I would have had the chance to make more of that connection with some of my colleagues.
Right.
But in general, I've been very fortunate, like, to have a lot of like very positive male colleagues in my life. I just don't like to perpetuate, like, I don't want any young woman listening to this to be like, oh, I don't want to get into this because like men are creeps in this area. Like, yeah, for sure. But in my experience, I've had nothing but very positive experiences with men who, older, younger, whatever, like who I work with, who not only keep it extremely professional, but also care about me feeling comfortable and feeling safe in a space. One of the main studios that I work out of, this client booked who I worked with at Atlantic, who made me feel extremely uncomfortable. And when he pulled up to the studio, I let the studio owner know, and he was like, cool, this will be he's already here, so like this will be his last session ever. He's not booking anymore. And like things like that where it's like, okay, cool, you're not just like, you're taking my worries seriously, So I've had like mostly very positive experiences with the men that I work with. But yeah, I think the combination of being super young and being a woman, it was definitely, I learned very fast. I will say that, like, you get thrown into it's a super adult world too. It's like, they're partying in the sessions, and there's guns and strippers and it's like, it's a very adult world for sure. So, and I was like, it's not like any of that was like super new to me, but I'm like, oh, I'm here now, So yeah, you get kind of thrust into that. And if you are made uncomfortable by that, then you find out quickly that's probably not going to be the job for you.
Right. Yeah. I think with any kind of minority in any type of situation, I feel like one thing that has helped me is kind of have an attitude like what you were talking about. It's just like, just whatever, I'll show you.
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't even need to talk about it.
Yeah, and I love that because that's kind of like how I've kind of thought about things too. Just working in, areas where I'm like the only black dude or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever, I'll show you. Because
they already have their preconceived notions anyways. So it's like that's already there. The only way to change that is to just show them the opposite. Basically, it's like, no, you're completely wrong. So yeah, why even waste the time? I'm just gonna show you.
Absolutely.
And if you're there for a reason. That was also like blew my mind. It's like, you are judging me, but we're in the same room. Like I'm here. So obviously somebody thinks I'm qualified. So why are you confused? So it's like we are here together. Let's get this done. Again, solution oriented, problem solving.
I love it.
Yep.
I think that's a great place to end it. Shans,
all right, cool.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, man.
I appreciate you.
Great talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for watching They're Good at That Shit. If you enjoyed what you heard, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if there's one friend or family member who you feel like could get something out of this, go ahead and send them the episode. Share it. We'd really appreciate that. And if there was something that resonated with you, go ahead and leave a comment. All right, we'll see you next time.